The lights of the Jimmy Kimmel live studio blaze down on a packed audience, their murmurs buzzing like static before a storm. Clint Eastwood, Hollywood legend, sits across from Kimmel, his weathered face carved with lines that tell stories of 1,000 roles, 1,000 fights. At 90 plus he's still a force, his presence heavy like the weight of every western he ever starred in. Kimmel, all polished charm and quick wit, leans forward ready to steer the conversation. The crowd expects banter, maybe a nostalgic nod to Dirty Harry or a quip about Eastwood's latest directorial project. But tonight something's off, you can feel it in the air. Attention, nobody's named yet. Eastwood's here to promote his new film, a gritty drama about a retired cop facing down his past. It's the kind of project that demands respect, the kind that reminds you why he's still in the game. Kimmel starts easy, asking about the inspiration behind the movie. Eastwood's voice, slow and grilly, cuts through the room. He talks about truth, about how the world's lost its grip on it, how his film digs into the mess of human choices. The audience nods along, captivated by the rawness in his words. But Kimmel, sensing a chance to lighten the mood, pivots to a joke about Eastwood's age, something about still throwing punches when most folks his age are in rocking chairs. The crowd laughs, but Eastwood doesn't. His eyes, sharp as ever, lock onto Kimmel. The host doesn't notice, or maybe he doesn't, thinks he can skate past it. He doubles down, tossing out another line about how Eastwood's probably got a stunt double for walking. Now the audience chuckles again, but it's thinner this time. Nervous, Eastwood leans back, his silence louder than the laughter. When he finally speaks, his words are measured, deliberate. He says he didn't come here to be a punchline, he came to talk about the work, about things that mattered. The studio goes quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your skin prickle. Kimmel tries to recover, flashing that boyish grin he's famous for. He steers the conversation back to the film, asking about the challenges of directing at this stage in Eastwood's career. But the mood's shifted, Eastwood's answers are clipped now, his patience fraying. He talks about the film's themes, corruption, betrayal, the kind of stuff that hits hard in a world drowning in headlines. Then Kimmel, maybe sensing the interview slipping, brings up politics. It's a loaded move. Eastwood's known for his outspoken views, and Kimmel's audience leans a certain way. The host asks, half joking, if Eastwood's cop character would vote the way he does. The question lands like a match in dry grass. Eastwood's jaw tightens. He says the film isn't about politics, it's about people, about what's right and wrong when the system fails. But Kimmel pushes, asking if Eastwood's views, his real ones, bleed into the story. The audience shifts in their seats, sensing blood in the water. Eastwood doesn't take the bait, not yet. He leans forward, his voice steady but edged with something dangerous. He says he's not here to preach, but he's not afraid to call things as he sees them. The crowd split, some clapping, others murmuring. Kimmel, caught off guard, tries to pivot again, but Eastwood's not letting it go. He starts talking about the state of the country, about division, about how people like Kimmel stir it up for ratings. The segment's running long and the producers are signaling to wrap it up. Kimmel tries to cut in, but Eastwood's on a roll, his words raw, unfiltered, the kind of truth that makes people uncomfortable. He's not yelling, but he doesn't need to. Every syllable carries weight. The audience is riveted, some cheering, others stunned. Kimmel's smile is gone now, replaced by a tight grimace. He knows this is spiraling and he's got to regain control before the break. But Eastwood's not done, and what he says next sends the whole thing crashing. Eastwood's voice cuts through the studio like a blade, each word deliberate, heavy with conviction. He's not just talking about his film anymore, he's laying bare the hypocrisy he sees everywhere, in media, in culture, in the very room he's sitting in. He calls out the way shows like Kimmel's thrive on cheap shots and sound bites, how they twist truth into entertainment. The audience is frozen, some nodding, others glaring, but nobody's looking away. Kimmel's face is a mask of forced calm, his hands gripping the desk a little too tight. He tries to interject, tossing out a light-hearted quip to diffuse the moment, but Eastwood doesn't even acknowledge it. He's locked in, and the room feels smaller, like the walls are closing around Kimmel's carefully curated world. The producers are frantic now, their signals from the control booth more desperate, their seconds from a commercial break. And this interview is a runaway train. Eastwood's not shouting, but his intensity is relentless, his words painting a picture of a country fractured by people who'd rather score points than face hard truths. He points a finger not at Kimmel directly, but the gesture feels personal. He says the problem isn't just out there, it's right here, in places where people laugh at serious things because it's Easier than thinking, the Crow. WD's reactions is a messy split, cheers clashing with boos, and Kimmel's stuck in the middle, his usual charm useless against Eastwood's raw force. Finally the break hits and the show cuts to commercials. The audience is buzzing, a chaotic hum of excitement and unease backstage. The mood is grim. Kimmel's team huddles, voices low but urgent. They know this is bad, the kind of bad that trends online and spawns headlines. Eastwood still in his chair, calm as ever, like he didn't just set the stage on fire. A producer approaches him, all nervous, smiles suggesting they smooth things over for the next segment. Eastwood just looks at him, that squinting stare that silenced tougher men, and says he's not here to smooth anything. The producer backs off fast when the show resumes. Kimmel's back on, his smile a little too wide, his voice a touch too bright. He tries to reset, welcoming the audience back and cracking a joke about how things got a little spicy. The crowd laughs, but it's hollow, and Eastwood's expression hasn't changed. Kimmel pivots to a safer topic, asking about Eastwood's early days in Hollywood, hoping to steer the conversation into nostalgic waters, but Eastwood's not playing along. He answers curtly, his mind clearly elsewhere, and then without warning he circles back to where they left off. He says the problem with shows like this is they pretend to care about truth, but only when it's convenient, when it fits the script. Kimmel's rattled now, his laugh forced. He tries to pivot again, bringing up a viral clip of Eastwood directing on set, hoping to shift to something lighter, but Eastwood shuts it down, saying he's not interested in viral moments, he's interested in what's real. The audience is on edge, sensing the clash isn't over. Eastwood leans forward, his voice quieter now but no less piercing. He starts talking about responsibility, about how people with platforms like Kimmel have a duty to do more than chase laughs. He says the world's hurting, and instead of helping too many just fan the flames. The crowd's reaction is louder this time, a mix of applause and murmurs, some agreeing, others defensive. Kimmel's losing ground and he knows it. He tries to interrupt, framing it as a friendly debate, but Eastwood's not debating, he's stating, and every word lands like a hammer. The segment's clock is ticking down again and the producers are signaling to wrap, but Eastwood's not stopping. He says something sharp about how people hide behind humor to avoid accountability, and the audience gasps, a few cheering, others stunned. Kimmel's smile is gone, his eyes darting to the control booth. He knows he's got to end this segment, but Eastwood's next move pushes everything past the point of no return. The studio lights feel harsher now, like they're exposing every crack in the polished facade of Jimmy Kimmel Live. Clint Eastwood's last words about hiding behind humor to dodge accountability hang in the air, sharp and unforgiving. The audience is a live wire, some leaning forward, others shifting uncomfortably, all waiting for what comes next. Kimmel's eyes flicker with something close to panic, though he's fighting to keep his composure. He tries to laugh it off, saying they've got a lively discussion tonight, but the words sound hollow and Eastwood's stare doesn't waver. The host's usual playbook, charm and deflection, is failing against a man who's built a career on cutting through nonsense. Kimmel, desperate to regain control, pivots to the audience, asking if they're enjoying the fireworks. A few cheer, but the response is scattered, the room too divided to give him the momentum he needs. He turns back to Eastwood, trying to pivot to the film again, asking about a specific scene to ground the conversation in something safe, but Eastwood's done with safe. He leans forward, his voice low, almost a growl, and says he's tired of dancing around the real issue. He starts talking about the media's role in shaping how people think, how it picks sides and sells narratives instead of facts. He doesn't name Kimmel directly, but the implication is clear and the crowd feels it, their murmurs growing louder. The host tries to interject, framing it as a difference of opinion, but Eastwood cuts him off, not with volume but with precision. He says it's not about opinions, it's about integrity, about owning the weight of your words when millions are watching. The audience erupts, some clapping, others booing, and Kimmel's forced to raise his voice to be heard. He says he respects Eastwood's perspective but suggests they agree to disagree and move on. It's a weak move and Eastwood pounces. He says agreeing to disagree is what people do when they're too scared to face the truth. The crowd's reaction is chaos now, a roar of approval and dissent, and the producers are practically climbing the walls, signaling for another break, but Eastwood's not stopping and Kimmel's running out of options. The host tries to pivot to a lighter topic, mentioning a celebrity guest waiting backstage, hoping to shift the energy. Eastwood ignores it. Doubling down, he talks about his film again, but not as promotion, as a mirror to what's happening right here right now. He says it's about a man who refuses to bend even when the world wants him to shut up. The parallel is unmistakable and the audience is eating it up, some shouting encouragement, others heckling. Kimmel's smile is a grimace, now his hands fidgeting with his cards. Then Eastwood goes further, saying the problem isn't just talk shows, it's the whole machine, the one that rewards clicks over substance, that turns serious issues into late night fodder. He's not preaching, he's dissecting, and every word feels like it's aimed at the heart of Kimmel's world. The host tries one last time to steer things, asking Eastwood if he's always been this intense, hoping to lighten the mood with a personal anecdote, but Eastwood's not biting. He says intensity is what you get when you've seen enough lies to know better. The audience is on its feet now, some cheering wildly, others yelling back, and the studio feels like it's seconds from boiling over. Kimmel's team is in full damage control mode, the producers gesturing frantically to cut to commercial, but before they can, Eastwood drops a final bomb. He looks straight at Kimmel and says the real shame is when someone with a platform chooses to play games instead of doing something that matters. The crowd loses it, a tidal wave of noise, and Kimmel's face goes pale. He stammers, trying to respond, but the segment ends abruptly, the screen cutting to black. Backstage, the fallout is immediate, and what happens next takes the whole mess to a new level. The studio's plunged into darkness as the show cuts to commercial, but the energy in the room is electric, a storm that hasn't broken yet. Backstage, it's pandemonium. Producers are barking orders, assistants are scrambling, and Kimmel's eye nowhere to be seen, likely holed up in his dressing room, reeling from Eastwood's verbal onslaught. The audience, still in their seats, is a cauldron of noise, some chanting Eastwood's name, others arguing among themselves. Clint Eastwood himself sits calmly in the guest chair, untouched by the chaos, his face unreadable but resolute, like a man who's just fired the last shot in a duel and knows he hit his mark. A senior producer, sweating through his headset, approaches Eastwood, voice slow, trying to sound authoritative but coming off desperate. They need to reset for the next segment, that things got out of hand and they'd appreciate it if Eastwood could dial it back. Eastwood doesn't even turn his head, just says in that grully drawl that he's not the one who needs to reset. The producer stammers, then retreats, knowing he's outmatched. Words spreading fast, crew members whispering about how this is the worst train wreck the show's ever seen, how it's already blowing up online. Phones in the audience are out, clips of the clash already circulating the internet, doing what it does best, amplifying the fire. When the show comes back from break, Kimmel's back at his desk, his face a forced mask of professionalism. The audience is still restless, their energy feeding off the earlier confrontation. Kimmel tries to start fresh, introducing the next segment with a strange joke about needing a referee. It lands flat, the crowd too keyed up to play along. Eastwood's still there against the producers, his hopes, his presence a silent challenge. Kimmel avoids looking at him directly, Fock using on the camera as he segues into a planned bit with the next guest, a pop star who's clearly unprepared for the room's intensity. The singer tries to charm, but the audience is distracted, their attention locked on Eastwood. Then, without warning, Eastwood speaks up, cutting through the pop star's bubbly anecdote. He says he's not done that. If they're going to talk about what's wrong with the world, they might as well do it right. The crowd roars, some cheering, others shouting for him to stop. Kimmel's caught off guard, his script useless now. He tries to mediate, saying they've got a show to run, but Eastwood's not having it. He starts talking about the stories his film tells, about people who stand up when everyone else backs down, and how that's what's missing today. His voice is steady, but there's a fire in it, the kind that makes people listen whether they agree or not. The pop star looks lost. The audience is a mess of cheers and jeers, and Kimmel's barely holding it together. He tries to interrupt, raising his voice, saying you need to move on, but Eastwood keeps going, saying the real issue is people like Kimmel who'd rather keep things shallow than face what's broken. The crowd's reaction is deafening, split down the middle, and the producers are signaling for security now, realizing this isn't salvageable. Kimmel, pushed to his limit, snaps, saying Eastwood's derailing the show, that he's a guest not the host. It's a mistake. Eastwood leans forward, his eyes like steel, and says he's not here to play by rules that protect cowards. The audience erupts again, and this time it's chaos. People standing, shouting, some rushing the stage. Security moves in, a burly team in black heading straight for Eastwood. Kimmel's shouting for calm, but it's too late. The room's a powder keg. Eastwood doesn't flinch as security closes in, his voice still carrying over the noise, saying he said what he came to say. The guards reach him, and what happens next sends the entire studio and the internet into a frenzy. The studio is a battlefield now, the air thick with shouts and the chaotic surge of bodies. Security guards, broad-shouldered and stone-faced, surround Clint Eastwood, their hands hovering near his arms but not quite touching, as if even they're hesitant to cross a legend. The audience is a sea of motion, some pushing toward the stage, phones raised capturing every second, while others scream for order or cheer. Eastwood on Kimmel's on his feet, his voice cracking as he yells for everyone to calm down, but it's like shouting into a hurricane. Eastwood, still seated, looks untouched by the madness, his eyes fixed on some distant point. A man who's faced worse than this and walked away standing. One of the guards, the biggest of the bunch, leans in, voice low, telling Eastwood it's time to go. The crowd catches it and the noise spikes, a mix of outrage and support. Eastwood doesn't move, doesn't even blink, just says calm as ever that he'll leave when he's ready, not when they decide. The guard hesitates, thrown by the steel in Eastwood's voice, but the producer's in his earpiece barking orders to get him out now. Kimmel, seeing the situation slipping further, tries to play peacemaker, stepping toward Eastwood with his hands up, saying nobody wants trouble, let's just cool off. But his words are drowned out by the crowd and Eastwood's not listening anyway. Then, in a moment that feels like it freezes time, Eastwood stands. The room seems to hold its breath. He's not as tall as he once was, not as broad, but his presence fills the space, commanding, unyielding. He looks at Kimmel, then at the guards, and says loud enough for the mix to catch that if they want him gone they'll have to do it themselves, but they better be ready for what comes after. The audience explodes, some chanting his name, others shouting at security to back off. A few overzealous fans try to climb the stage and security shifts to block them, creating a momentary gap around Eastwood. Kimmel's team is in full panic. The control booth, a frenzy of shouted instructions. The shows still live, the cameras rolling and the internet's already ablaze with clips, hashtags and hot takes. Eastwood takes a step forward and the guards tense, unsure whether to grab him or let him walk. He doesn't look at them, just starts moving toward the stage's edge, low, deliberate, like he's leaving on his terms. The crowd parts for him, some reaching out, others still filming, their voices a chaotic chorus. Kimmel, desperate to salvage something, rushes to the mic, trying to spin it, saying they'll be right back after a quick break, but nobody's listening. As Eastwood reaches the stage's exit, he stops, turning back to face Kimmel. The room quiets just enough for his voice to carry. He says, "This is what happens when you push a man who's got nothing left to lose," and that Kimmel and everyone like him should remember that it's not a threat, but it lands like one, and the audience roars again, some in awe, others in defiance. Security moves to escort him out, but Eastwood shrugs them off, walking through the backstage curtain alone. The show cuts to commercial, but the damage is done. The studio a powder keg that's already blown. Backstage the fallout is immediate. Producers are screaming about lawsuits, ratings and sponsors. Kimmel's in his dressing room, shell-shocked, his team trying to figure out how to spin this disaster. Eastwood, meanwhile, is already at the studio's exit, his longtime assistant waiting with a car. The internet's burning up, clips of the clash racking up millions of views, and the story's taking on a life of its own. But what happens next outside those studio doors is where the real consequences start to unfold. The night air outside the Jimmy Kimmel Live studio is cool, a sharp contrast to the suffocating heat of the chaos inside. Clint Eastwood steps into the waiting car, his assistant shutting the door with a quiet thud. The streets already buzzing, fans and onlookers gathered behind barriers, some shouting his name, others holding up phones, their flashes cutting through the darkness. Eastwood doesn't acknowledge them, just leans back in his seat, his face unreadable but calm, like a man who said his piece and left the rest to burn. As the car pulls away, the studio behind him is still reeling, but out here the story is already bigger than the stage it started on. Inside, Kimmel's team is in crisis mode. The show limps through its final segments, but the pop star's performance and the closing monologue feel like afterthoughts. The audience's energy spent on the clash. Kimmel tries to end on a high note, cracking a weak joke about surviving tough guests, but the laughter's thin, the crowd distracted. Backstage, producers are on phones with Network X's damage control in overdrive. They're talking lawsuits, PR strategies, and how to handle the viral storm that's already rewriting the narrative. Clips of Eastwood's words, his stand against Kimmel, are everywhere, racking up views by the second, fueling debates across every platform. The internet split just like the studio audience was. Some call Eastwood a hero, a truth-teller who exposed the shallowness of late-night TV. Others paint him as a bully, an old man picking a fight he didn't need to. Pundits jump in, spinning the clash into whatever fits their agenda, while memes and reaction videos flood feeds. Eastwood's film, the one he came to promote, is suddenly there. Hottest topic in town. It's the S of defiance and truth striking a chord with a world hungry for something real. Box office buzz is spiking, and industry insiders are whispering that this might be his biggest opening in years, all because of a fight nobody saw coming. Kimmel, meanwhile, is facing a firestorm. His team pushes out a statement carefully worded saying they respect Eastwood's passion but regret the segment got heated. It does little to calm the storm. Critics pile on, some accusing him of baiting Eastwood, others saying he lost control of his own show. Fans defend him, arguing he was just doing his job, but the backlash is relentless. Talk shows across the dial are dissecting the moment, hosts tiptoeing around whether to praise Eastwood or call him out. Kimmel's next episode sees a ratings bump, but it's bittersweet. The kind of attention that stings. Eastwood, for his part, stays silent. No interviews, no statements, just the man himself letting his actions speak. His assistant fields calls from reporters, studios, and even politicians, all wanting a piece. F the story, but Eastwood's already back to work, back to the life he's always lived, one where the noise of the world doesn't matter as much as the work in front of him. His film's premiere is packed, the audience giving him a standing ovation before the credits even roll. Some say it's respect for his career, others say it's for what he did on that stage, standing up when most would have backed down. The clash becomes a cultural touchstone, a moment people point to when they talk about truth, media, and the cost of speaking your mind. For Kimmel, it's a scar, a reminder of what happens when you push a man like Eastwood too far. For Eastwood, it's just another chapter, one he wrote on his terms. The car's long gone now, disappearing into the city, but the echo of his words lingers, a challenge to everyone watching to decide what they stand for when the lights come on. And as the world keeps spinning, one thing's clear, nobody's forgetting that night anytime soon.